Good morning and welcome to Live at the Legislature, where every week we interview members of the House Majority Democrats on issues and bills being discussed at the Hawaii State Legislature. This morning, we're lucky to have two representatives with us. We have Representative Daniel Holt, District 29, that's Kalihi, Palama, Ivalai, and Chinatown. He's also the Vice Chair of the House Tourism and International Affairs Committee. And we have Representative Della Belatti, District 24, Makiki, Macaulay, Tantalus, and parts of Manoa. And she is also the majority leader in the House of Representatives. Good morning, and thank you both for being here.
Good morning.
Representative Holt, I'd like to start with you. Your areas are Chinatown and Ivalai. There is a lot of homeless in that area, and there are a lot of concerns about COVID-19 and how that affects the businesses and residents. And recently, the IHS, the homeless facility, tried to expand into Chinatown, and there was a lot of pushback against that. Can you tell us what happened there? What was that facility and what went on?
Thank you, James. Even before the proposed facility was thought of, our businesses in Chinatown were already struggling with a homeless problem. We're trying to figure out a way to, get people back down there. And when the COVID hit, because it came from China, we faced even a bigger problem because people associated it with Chinatown. IHS received some funding from the federal government, to try to keep our community safe, keep the homeless people who had COVID out of the public's view. So they had proposed a facility on Beretania Street where the lay shops are. And with the $2.6 million from the federal government, they proposed a 6-bed homeless triage facility right in the middle of our community. There are 5,000 residents across the street, and there are a lot of longtime local businesses, the lay shops, the nail salons. And to further compound on our homeless problem in Chinatown would have been very unfortunate. Luckily, I got together with our area legislators, Council Member Fukunaga, Senator Rhodes, and we sent a letter expressing our concerns along with many of our community members. And Governor Abercrombie was on board, a lot of the restaurants in the area, and thankfully, the community's concerns, and they have scrapped the plans for 65 North Beretania. I understand we do have an issue with the homeless, and we do need to find some place to put them, but that area was just not fitting for our community. So I'd like to thank IHS very much for being receptive to the community, and I'd like to thank our community members too for coming together and joining together to show that it's just too much for us already. And I'm just very thankful for everybody, and it just shows what we can do when communities come together, and it shows what happens when our government listens to our communities as well. And you don't have to be adversaries. We can work together in these sections. So I look forward to working with IHS to find a suitable spot for their new facility.
I see. So even though it's not going in, it worked out in the situation, and they're now looking for someplace else. Is that correct?
Yes, we do need to have a facility to house these people who are less fortunate. And everybody says, not in my backyard. Fortunately and unfortunately for me, I realize that they're not going to go anywhere. They're in my community. We have to help them. So we have a lot of services down in the Ivalai area. So we're looking down there now. But, we have to stay open, and nobody wants them right across the street from their house, but they have to go somewhere. So we'll definitely be finding a suitable spot.
That sounds good. It sounds like a good compromise. On a totally different issue, because you are the vice chair of the tourism committee, we're starting to think about the return of tourism and bringing people back into our state. Do you have any concerns about that? Any ideas of how that could be, how people could fly in, how that could work as the tourism base?
We have a unique situation, the contiguous United States, they're going to struggle once, they couldn't really close down their border. Us and Alaska, we have an opportunity. Alaska has been a great leader, and I think we could follow in their footsteps. They are requiring a test within 3 to 5 days. And flying into Alaska, we could do something. If they don't have a test, they're required to pay for one upon arrival. But we are in a very unique situation where we do need to open soon because our economy relies on tourism.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about, and I agree, we do need to diversify, but it won't be as fast as we need. We're going to need tourism to dig us out of this hole, but we do have an opportunity to make it work for us. Before the pandemic hit, we were facing an issue of over-tourism, where we were too crowded, and we're overtaxing our natural resources. We're pushing out our rent. So we're probably never going to be able to get back to maximum capacity. So we do have an opportunity to get the higher spending tourists to come back. We will need to make it a little bit more expensive for them because we're not going to be able to pack them in at 95% anymore. But it will work for the locals as well. Our beaches will be less crowded. Our hikes will be less trashed. And I think we can try to get the responsible tourists, high spending, responsible tourists who's going to come back and really take care of our communities like our residents.
Sounds good. It sounds like
although it will be a struggle, I think we do have great opportunities.
Yeah, taking a look and doing it right. Now, Rep. Belatti, I don't want to ignore you here, and we only have a couple minutes left. We have an important question for you. I understand that the session may reconvene soon, and I was wondering when that might be and what the priorities will be for the House.
Thanks, James. We haven't quite finalized the calendar at the moment, but we are looking at reconvening soon. Announcement will be made later today about that. I think it's really important. Some of the things that Representative Holt just mentioned, the kind of coordination that needs to happen at the city and state levels as we continue to roll out, the kind of thought we have to put into reopening the community. We're not going to be taking up some of those longer term issues. We're still going to be looking at kind of more the emergency type legislation, the budgetary matters that we need to settle that were left a little bit unfinished at the last reconvening that we did, and we reconvened on May 22nd, we recessed on March 17th. We came back May 11th through May 22nd. So we're going to come back for another opportunity. But again, it's to deal with some of the issues, to start the long-term planning, to lay the foundation for moving forward.
Okay, well, it sounds like we'll see what happens later today, and we'll have another go at making things right for our state and getting the bills and laws passed we need to. Well, we've basically run out of time, so I want to thank you both for being here, Representative Daniel Holt and Representative Della. Della. Okay.
Thanks, James.
Thanks.
Bye.
Aloha and welcome back to Live at the Legislature for our Hawaii State Senate segment. I'm Communications Director Jesse Broder Van Dyke, and my guest this week is Majority Leader Jay Kalani English, who represents East Maui, Molokai, Lanai, and Kaho'olawi. Majority Leader, you have some of the most remote parts of the state in your district, and both East Maui and Molokai have had positive cases of COVID-19. How are the residents in those areas doing?
They're doing very well. I also represent Upcountry Maui, and we've had a number of positive cases up in Kula and up in Haiku and those areas too. So, I have a very unique district, vast, and I'm dealing with really 3.5 core islands, right? So let's just start with a very quick rundown of the things that are happening. So for East Maui, I'm in the process of putting together what's called an East Maui traffic management plan. Right now, we still have the National Guard that's on the road at the blockade of Twin Falls and then on Ulupalapua on the other side. We are slowly working on a plan to manage traffic and manage what's going in and out of Hana to make it a more pleasant experience for everybody, including the locals. And we're working with, across the board. So it's people at the Haleakala National Park, tour companies, the local groups and organizations. A lot of young people. I've asked a lot of young people to join in this discussion. So we're working on that plan. In the meantime, Wainapanapa State Park remains closed. So yesterday there was an announcement by DLNR that they reopened some of the parks. And what they did in Wainapanapa is that they allowed people transit through the park to get down to Pailoa, which is the beach down there. So the park remains closed, but people can transit through the park to get to the beach, which allows our people in Hana then to go fishing. It's a famous fishing grounds in the old days, so people want to go back there to fish. But the park remains closed, as are the two other Pua'aka'a and Kaumahina state parks along the Hana Highway. Haleakala National Park in Kipohulu is also closed as we work on the traffic management plan. Then if we go to Upcountry Maui, we have a slow reopening going on there. Haleakala National Park is open to local traffic, and it's open from 9 to 5 every day, excluding weekends. So you can go up there if you're from Maui and you want to go see Haleakala. Now might be a good time. 9 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. So you'll miss the sunset or sunrise, but it's still worth going up there, without any people, right? Molokai, Lanai, the biggest issues we're facing right now, of course, is the future of food delivery and delivery of items to the island with what's happening with Young Brothers. Should Young Brothers go bankrupt, then we have an interruption of the food service and delivery of food items to Molokai and Lanai. So that's a really big issue, and we're carefully following that. We will go into session at the end of this month and to the beginning of next month, and there'll be a press conference later today to announce exact dates and times for that. In that session, we will be dealing with the Young Brothers' requests for government support. Right now, I know the executive is really examining their books, the PUC is examining their books, and of course, we're looking at all different plans, including Plan B, which is what happens should Young Brothers go out, right? As we head into session, Jesse, it's getting really, we're looking at all kinds of measures that need to move ahead. When we adjourned, or not adjourned, what's the right word? When we recessed the session in March, there were a number of bills that were left where they were. In other words, whatever committee they were in, that's where they were left. We're going to try and pick up on some of them, and I'd like to highlight one that's really germane to us right now, and that's House Bill 285, Senate Draft 2. So this particular bill requires the police departments to disclose to the legislature disciplinary actions and the identity of officers that have been disciplined within the police department. It's a transparency measure. This particular bill is in conference. That means the House and the Senate are negotiating on it. And I hope that given, the terrible circumstances with the murder of George Floyd by the police department in North America, really brought to light why we need to move this bill forward. And on that point, I'd like to extend my condolences to the family of George Floyd. Today is his services. I was watching it on TV this morning. It's a terrible, terrible thing to have your own government kill your own people. And we're very fortunate that in Hawaii, our police departments are very different than this. I can speak for Maui, where they work with the communities. I mean, in Maui, we had protesters outside of the police station. The chief of police took some water out with them, said, "We support you," took pictures with them. it was, Hawaii is a very different view, so our spirit of aloha comes through. I am concerned, however, with the large amount of protests where they were very close to each other. I noticed a lot of them wearing masks. And so I'm just asking, like the governor put out a request today, and I'm reiterating that request, that if you're part of these protests, consider quarantining yourselves for about 14 days, just to be safe, because a lot of people did wear masks, but a lot didn't, and they were very close to each other. So just for safety, consider doing that. And with that, the Senate is supporting the idea that the police departments become more accountable across the United States, noting that the police departments in Hawaii have been very good. And so we support what's happening across America for that reform. And again, our condolences to the family of George Floyd.
Absolutely. You are the chair of the Festival of the Pacific, and you convene a regular meeting with a bunch of Pacific Island nation leaders. There's been some talk about doing a travel bubble, maybe, since there's so many cases on the mainland U.S. What's the status on that?
We do, with modern technology, we do a Zoom meeting with Pacific Island leaders, many times heads of state and ministers. And the short of it is that we're talking about doing, maybe starting off with a very simple bubble, Hawaii, Tahiti, because Tahiti did better protocols than we did. And they trust what we did, we trust what they did. So a simple bubble with those islands so that we can move between them back and forth, I think would be a good beginning for creating travel bubbles. So yes, we are looking at the idea of sterile corridors and sterile areas for people to move in. Of course, with testing, with acceptance of tracking devices for checking in daily, things like that.
I'm looking forward to going to Tahiti again and being able to fly inter-island soon. So thank you so much.
Will open on the 16th of this month.
Yeah, June 16th.
We'll have a Hawaii bubble. That'll be the Hawaii bubble interacting here.
That'll be great. And so many people I know want to see their family and friends as well. Okay, unfortunately, we're out of time, but that was a great discussion. And thanks for tuning in, and thanks for being here, Majority Leader.
Thank you.
What are you doing? We have to go. I'm gonna be late for work.
It's Tuesday morning. I gotta record live at the legislature on Alelo. Senate and House leadership discussing what's happening at the state capitol.
So just watch it on the news tonight. Come on, let's go.
Hey, this is like getting the news before it's news. If only I could get this remote to work.
There. Can we go now?
No DVR? No problem. Watch Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. on Channel 49.
Morning and welcome back to Live at the Legislature. I'm Kyle Kealoha-Lindsay, the host for the Legislative Minority segment, where we interview members of the House and Senate from the Republican caucuses. And joining us this morning is Representative Bob McDermott, coming out from House District 40, Eva Beach, and he serves as a member of the House Select Committee on COVID-19. McDermott, how are you this morning? Good to see you again.
Good, Kyle. I'm feeling better. And first, as always, I want to thank Mr. Graham and the Alelo crew for getting up early and busting their butt and making this all happen for us and the citizens of Hawaii. So thank you, guys.
We cannot thank them enough.
And thank you.
Oh, yes, it's my pleasure. Last time we talked, we were talking about the testing plan that you and Rep Ward were working on. Do you have an update on that?
Well, Kyle, I think it's more timely than ever as we're seeing these numbers in Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, Chicago, just spike up after they open, right? So that's a real concern for all of us. These numbers have spiked up after their soft reopening. I think California got 2,000 to 3,000 new cases or something, and we just cannot import that virus knowingly and willingly into the state without testing. Gene and I put something on paper. People have talked about it, people have mentioned it, but we actually put a plan on paper about 10 or 11 points of what we need to do. And that is to protect our residents and the people in the visitor industry, the hoteliers, the people who rent cars, the people who clean the rooms. We need to protect our citizens and residents. And if we have the opportunity to do so because we're surrounded by water, we should do that. So Gene, Rep Board has been working with the White House on some legislation that will, it can't force it, but can strongly encourage that you get tested 72 hours prior to departure. And that, of course, is the same thing as Josh Green has been working on as well. But I believe we're the only ones who put anything on paper, to be honest with you.
Is there any concern with, in addition to the soft openings of places on the mainland, with the protests that we've seen nationwide and even locally? Do you have any concern of a second wave a little sooner than expected?
Yes, as the Democrats were on just a moment ago, they were talking about the closeness of the protesters, not wearing masks, no social distancing at all, and you're surrounded by thousands of people. And that is a concern. We'll see in about 10 days. Now, most of these folks were young folks, so they're going to be in pretty good shape. But we'll see what the spike is. And of course, you got to get tested too, right? So are they going to get tested? I don't think they're going to self-quarantine, but will they get tested? So that's a concern.
And do you have a time frame for reopening?
Well, we're working on that actually. I've been a little behind the power curve, of course, because we were talking about the back injury, but we're working on that. But I think as these recent data statistics show us on the mainland, rather go slow and get it right than go fast and have to shut the whole darn thing down. I am told that Utah is out of hospital beds now. Imagine that. According to Josh Green, last week, 1/3 of our ICU is currently full, right? So 1/3 of our ICU beds are full. It would just take 2 weeks of bad visitor management and we would be full. And then where do our local people go to get care, right? So this is a real concern. And tourism as we've known it is changed forever. Unless there's a vaccine or therapeutics that mitigate this, we are going to a brave new world and we got to figure it out. Instead of, they were talking about bubbles. The bubble is only as good as each side of the bubble, right? So if we're bringing in tourists, say from Japan or New Zealand, we got to make sure the ones coming in from the mainland are clean too, because otherwise that dilutes and pollutes our pool of residents here who would interact with the visitors, and then that bubble would go away.
And as we go farther into summer and say we continue this quarantine period, how do you foresee us to, just with the assumed increase in visitors, how do we keep that at bay as well?
Well, we have about 4 minutes left here, so probably about 3 minutes 45 seconds. but how do we keep that at bay? How do we grapple with it? That's the question. How do we get our arms around this? We're going to have to look at doing things here that we haven't done before, and government's going to be part of that. We're going to have to make incentives for people to grow our own food here. Quite honestly, ranching, chicken farms, things of that nature, because we're seeing particularly the neighbor islands, the fragility of the supply chain with young brothers. So we've got to look at things totally differently. No more 10 million visitors. I think you're going to be down to maybe 3 million, if that, and if that's what we do a great protocol on.
Quality over quantity, definitely.
Yeah. And then we could do some things, Waikiki, more trees, maybe more bike paths, and make it more of a pedestrian-friendly place to do those sorts of things. But I go back to the testing and the implementation. That is going to be serious. We see these waves spiking now, and no one wants to see that. My goodness, it's so depressing, because here in Hawaii, we're all just waiting, right? People want to get out. They want to go do things, but you can't. You got to social distance. It's really tough, and I feel bad for the community and the kids and everybody else. And of course, we have to grapple with, coming up here, I got about 2 minutes left, the education system, how we're going to deal with the school reopening, right? We got 2 minutes. Let's drill down on that. We got 2 minutes to talk about school reopening. They're not, although kids are much more resilient to this, according to the data, and they're not as susceptible. You don't want them to be a hot spot and carry it like wildfire, because most of them like my family, live in a multi-generational home. So the 6-year-old who is not going to practice social distancing, or the 7-year-old comes home, they're asymptomatic, they give it to grandma, and then grandma's got the problem, right? So how do we manage this? It's just, we're going to learn a lot of lessons, and I'm afraid some of them are going to be painful. And what do you think?
I'm hoping you're coming into town from Eva Beach, so if we could at least start a pilot program, if half virtual, or you can stagger the start time of classes, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Notice traffic's pretty much it's almost back to normal. It's
Is it?
if we could keep that at bay as well. We might as well try new things. These are unprecedented times.
And I think this meeting is going to be Zoom meetings, and the Microsoft and all that is going to replace these meetings where we used to have to all get together. It's just going to be a way to go.
Lastly, do you have a comment on? We were supposed to go back in the session on the 15th. The majority had just mentioned that sometime in July. Do you have a comment on that?
I think, the delay is going to be good because it gives us more time to look at the lay of the land, look at young brothers, look what we need to do for our community, and see. There's no sense rushing it. We move expeditiously, move quickly. And with my 30 seconds here, I'm just going to say that we're going to move quickly, we're going to move expeditiously, but we're going to do it right. And we want to make sure we get it right. So I want to thank you. I want to thank the guys from Olelo for making this happen. I want to thank Tom, LaFa, everybody. Thank you, guys. And you sign up.
Good. You're keeping positive. We need that in these very challenging and unprecedented times. Okay. Thanks for joining us. To everyone at Olelo, we will see you next week.
Aloha, gang. Thank you.